I believe that the death penalty is necessary in certain cases like rape, murder, and pedophilia, as the people cannot be rehabilitated. I've seen firsthand the damage that can be done to the survivors of such acts when their abuser is released or not even charged. The death penalty is a necessary punishment for certain crimes to ensure the safety of society, and that it is the most humane option available. Too often, violent offenders are let go or given light sentencing due to overcrowding or budget cuts. Many of these offenders are likely to reoffend again either inside or outside of prison walls. The death penalty is a necessary punishment for certain crimes to ensure the safety of society, ease the burden on the system, and that it is the most humane option available. My goal is to persuade you that this is the best option we have. First, I will talk about rape and rapists. Let's cover the definition of rape from the U.S. Department of Justice. It states that the penetration, no matter how slight, of the vagina or anus with any body part or object, or oral penetration by a sex organ of another person without the consent of the victim. Now that we have established what the legal definition of rape is, we can start to unpack this complex topic. 1 woman out of 6 will have experienced or potentially experienced rape in America. That means out of the 116.7 million women in America in 2019, 27,783,000 women will experience this in their lifetime. The animals that do these sorts of things should not be allowed to live freely. Here's a chilling report from CMSAC, an organization centered around victims' rights and awareness. If a rape is reported, there's a 50.8% chance of an arrest. If an arrest is made, there's an 80% chance of prosecution. If there's a prosecution, there's a 58% chance of conviction. If there's a felony conviction, there's a 69% chance the victim will spend time in jail. So even if the 39% of attacks are reported to police, there's only a 16.3% chance a rapist will end up in prison. Factoring in unreported rapes, that's about 6% of rapists will ever spend a day in jail. This means that 61% of these cases will never go reported. We are doing these victims a disservice. We are literally killing them with our inaction. Here's the raw data again from CMSAC. Victims of sexual assault are 3 times more likely to suffer from depression, 6 times more likely to suffer from PTSD, 13 times more likely to abuse alcohol, 26 times more likely to abuse drugs, and 4 times more likely to contemplate suicide. We need to take action and empower these victims. Those convicted of rape will commit crimes again. Dr. Andrew Harris has a master's degree in sociology, a PhD in criminal psychology. He has spent his entire life studying criminals and their recidivism rate, or the rate at which they reoffend. His work has found that recidivism rates were reported for 3 distinct follow-up periods: 5 years, 10 years, and 15 years. Sexual recidivism rates for rapists based on new charges or convictions were 14% at 5, 21% at 10, and 24% at 15 years. These monsters will rape again, as well as commit other crimes against innocent women and children. They must be removed from our society so that their evil will not spread and hurt more people. They made their choice, and it's time we made ours. I will now briefly cover murderers and their sentences. We all know that what murder is, and we can agree it's a vile thing, but what many of us don't know is the travesty that is the justice for the victims and their families. Mr. William Paul Blackford, the co-founder of Blackford and Floor, hails from Maryland with over 20 years' experience as a personal lawyer. He put together a chart that shows crimes and their federal sentencing. What he found is that first-degree murder max sentence is life, but the average time served is 17.4 years. Second-degree murder max is 30 years, but the average is 5.9. And third-degree murder or manslaughter maximum is 10 years, and the average is 9.2. So the average murderer, a person who takes the life of another person purely because they could, will only serve 17.4 years. You can take someone's wife away, parent away, or child away, and all you get is 17.4 years and a temperature-controlled building. These murderers will receive free health care, free food, free entertainment, and free education for their sentence, all on the backs of their victims and their families. You as a citizen pay for these things while you struggle daily to provide as they sit there and then get to walk free. Something here just doesn't make sense now, does it? I fully believe that first and second degree murderers should be put to death depending on their crime and the details within. Now, we're all reasonable people, and I know that this may sound harsh, but the murderers I'm talking about are the lowest of the low. The home invaders, the drive-by shooters, the monsters that prey upon anyone they can, not the people defending their homes or their children or saving someone from a robbery or a rape. Lastly, I'll cover the most disturbing topic, pedophiles, and those who commit child sex crimes. Lately, these animals have been trying to sneak their way into the LGBTQ plus community as either MAPS or no MAPS. This means minor attracted person or non-offending minor attracted person. They believe they are virtuous or virtuous pedophiles. Do not let them twist language to try and force themselves into our community. These predators go after children, and here's some data to back this statement up. Again, from CMSAC, 15% of sexual assault and rape victims are under the age of 12. 7% of girls in grades 5 to 8 and 12% of girls in grades 9 to 12 said they had been sexually abused. In 1995, local child protective service agencies identified 126,000 children who were victims of either sustained or indicated sexual abuse. Of these, 75% were girls, and nearly 30% of the victims were between the ages of 4 and 7. 93% of juvenile sexual assault victims know their attacker. 34.2% of them were family members. This information is shocking and should scare you, but unfortunately it only gets worse. Jumping back to the sex offender sentencing, monitoring, apprehending, registering, and tracking of 2018, overall follow-up studies typically find recidivism rates of 10 to 15% after 5 years, 20% after 10 years, and 30 to 40% after 20 years. That's just those who got caught. 30 to 40% of these monsters will hurt another child and get caught again. Criminals get smarter and smarter, and their time in jail and prison is spent learning how to operate under the radar to avoid detection. Not to mention our complete failure to protect our children again in the so-called Justice Department. Another figure from Mr. Blackford states the average sentencing for sexually assaulting a child is only 25 years, but the average time served is 3. Child pornography is a 10-year sentence. So in as little as 3 years, we let these predators out to hurt more children. We can solve this problem by using the death penalty quickly and more efficiently. There are some other incentives other than protecting our society. The first is the financial impact on our society. On average, the taxpayer has to fork over $55,000 a year per prisoner to keep them alive and kept in prison and jails. Statista is a website that tracks all sorts of criminal and non-criminal records and activities for public knowledge. Pulling from the records, we can see that 16,425 murders were committed in 2019. So in 1 year, we paid $903 million in 1 year, assuming that each murder victim had only one assailant. $27 billion will be spent over 30 years in taxpayer dollars just to keep these people in prison for their sentences, for just the crimes committed in 1 year. The money could be used elsewhere. The average community college tuition is $4,692 a year. 192,000 students could go to community college a year for free with the money spent just on murderers alone. This money can go to schools or communities in need like Flint, Michigan for clean water. The second is that the death penalty is more humane than life in prison. Life sentences just mean slave labor, and many of these prisoners are put to work building roads, cleaning up garbage, doing other jobs that American citizens could make a real living doing. Prisoners are forced to work in inhumane conditions with little to no oversight from the outside of the prison. If they die in the heat, no one seems to care. Why torture them when we can prevent all that unnecessary suffering? But they're human beings, some activists cry. OADP, an organization against the death penalty, brings up a few good points, like racial discrimination. Those who kill whites are more likely to be sentenced to die than those who kill African Americans. In Oregon, prosecutors from the same counties are more likely to pursue the death penalty than others are. And things like mental health of those applying the penalty. Would you choose to be the person that pulls the switch that snuffs out a human life? Corrections personnel involved in executions, like our military, frequently suffer from PTSD and from having to kill. Perhaps there's a reason to have a defensive military, but prisoners pose no threat to the well-being of our citizens. There is no reason to place the mental health of our corrections workers at risk simply to pursue vengeance. To these points, I have answers. To stop discrimination, the case will be reviewed by 50 random citizens, one from every state. They will review the evidence without the race of the accuser or the victim known, only name, age, and gender. Only if the accused was convicted of a racially motivated hate crime will the race be revealed to the panel. This will help reduce racially biased sentencing. The second one is accepting volunteers to perform the sentencing. Only those who believe that they are ready and pass a mental health check from a licensed, non-incentivized third party will be performing the sentence. Finally, we can create a future in which women and children can feel safe again. Harsh penalties will deter people from making these choices. Evil is a choice people make. You don't speed because you can get a ticket, and you don't shoplift because you may get arrested. Deterrence work. Justice being done will allow more victims to speak out. Most sex crimes go unreported because too many people have gotten no sentences or a slap on the wrist, and many are afraid of retaliation from their abuser, causing them to be silent. This will allow them to feel empowered and safe. Today I've talked about some disturbing facts and realities that we are currently all affected by. I obviously want due process, and every case should be fully reviewed before decisions are made, but we must take a stand. There's no reason a man who rapes a 7-year-old girl should only get 3 years in prison just so he can do it again. We must utilize the death penalty to protect the most vulnerable among us. I challenge you to ask your officials where they stand, and also ask that you look to the links I will provide to see for yourself what I've seen while putting this together. Together, we can change the world forever, and together, we can be free. Thank you, and have a great day.